Hi, everybody. Welcome to Rachel's Reviews. And this is our 12th episode of the Female Film Critics panel. And that means we have been doing this for a year, which is really incredible. I can't believe it. And this has been such a treat for me. And we have a very special episode for this momentous occasion, I guess you could say. And I'm very excited about it. I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and Jen Johans is here.
Hi.
Right. And Allison Rose is here.
Hello.
And thank you both so much for coming on the podcast. And I'd like you to each give our audience a chance to get to know you. And so if you could introduce yourself, and why don't you start, Jen?
Hi, I'm Jen Johans. I'm a film critic. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. I've been writing about movies online since about 2006-ish. So yeah, I'm old. I've been around for a while, and recently launched a podcast, Watch with Jen, as well. So I'm really glad to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And you recently got added to Rotten Tomatoes, so that's so exciting.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I kept forgetting to apply, and then finally people are like, you can apply for that. Oh yeah. So
yeah. That's great. Great. Well, Allison, what about you?
Oh, let's see. What about me? I work for Flick Direct, which is an entertainment website. I am also a Rotten Tomatoes or Tomato Meter approved critic, so you can find my reviews there. I've interviewed some celebrities for some movies and things. I write a lot of reviews. Yeah, a lot. I think, is there anything else you'd like to know about me?
That's good. That's very, very good. And yeah, so we're all three tomato strong. It's very exciting. Yeah. So my first question is, what is your favorite part about either writing or creating content, whether podcasting or writing? What about film? What is your favorite part of it, Jen?
That is a really good question. I write for, I think I forgot, because I was just so excited to be back with you, Rachel, again for the third podcast. I was so excited.
Unbelievable.
I've been on Criterion Cast and the Hallmarkies pod as well. So this was really wonderful. I do write for my own site primarily, which is filmintuition.com, and also DVD Netflix and the Phoenix Film Festival are my main places where I write. So I think because I've been writing for so long and starting out on my own website, I kind of focused on the content that I wanted, which was started out like my website is called filmintuition.com, like female intuition. So I started out originally with female filmmakers and focused specifically on those movies, and then started to branch out. I still love covering female filmmakers, but went into art films. So foreign films, mainstream. I think my favorite thing about writing about movies is championing the movies that maybe the average moviegoer might not see otherwise. So that's my favorite aspect by far.
Yeah, I think that is definitely one of the perks of the job.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to find those gems unless you watch as much as the rest as the three of us watch.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, that's I think where you really, people say, why do we need critics in this day and age? I think it's because especially now, there's so much content that's released.
Absolutely.
It really is.
There has to be somebody who's going to wade through it and going to say, or watch this, don't watch that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So I love that too. I used to go down back when the Art House Theater was open here. They still have not reopened it in Utah, but I used to go down and would just be there the whole day.
I love that. That's so great.
It was my favorite. And one of the best experiences I had doing that was I saw Wild Rose.
Yes,
such a good movie.
Just love.
Oh, such a good movie.
It's one of my favorites.
How great is
Jessie Buckley?
Yes.
Yeah.
Jessie Buckley is really she's like my new favorite.
Yeah.
Yes.
Me too.
Yeah.
Even being in Doolittle, I could still love her.
Yeah.
but yeah, I loved Wild Rose so much, and I knew nothing about it. It was just fit in my time slot that I had, and the Art House Theater here has my favorite restaurant right next door. So you go to the it's my favorite restaurant because it has a long bar area where you can just sit if you're by yourself, so you don't feel like weird.
Mm.
Oh, gotcha.
And and you can kind of communicate with the chefs, and it's an open kitchen, and it's so delicious. Copper Onion is called. And if you ever come to Salt Lake, I'll take you. And
Deal.
Sounds great. Yeah.
and they have this stroganoff that is so
Ooh,
good.
You're making me hungry.
I know.
Yeah, what is this, Rachel? Dinner's
It's-
included, right? No.
That's right. If you come, it would be. But it's my favorite place, and so you could go to see shows at the Broadway downtown, and then go to the Copper Onion, and that is just like a perfect day in my life, and I miss it so much. The last time I went, it's kind of funny. I went to a screening of My Spy with Dave Bautista.
Okay.
Remember that
Oh,
one?
yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, I mean, it wasn't that bad,
Mm.
but I was like, I can't, because I knew things were kind of in a weird spot, and like, I can't have that be the last movie that I see before things close down. And Portrait of a Lady on Fire was playing at the Broadway, and so I went.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I can live with that.
Yes,
Be my
good
last
palate
one.
cleanser.
Right. I can hang my head high. So, but what about you, Allison? What is your favorite part about reviewing films and being a content creator?
I think my favorite part is really just being able to explore new genres of film, and to see what is being created out there. I mean, with technology nowadays, it's just incredible. So
Yeah.
for me, just seeing what's new, and maybe something I never would have gone to see, like Wild Rose, and
Mhm.
did go to see and absolutely loved it. For me, that's just the best. It's just great, and getting feedback from people too. It's always nice to hear what other people have to say. Whether they agree with me or disagree with me. I like to hear others' opinions on movies and their take on it. Doesn't mean I'm going to change my opinion, but,
Very true. Yeah.
but I like the dialogue.
Yeah.
Especially when you have those people that you just know are going to make a great comment, and you're almost looking forward to it,
Mhm.
that they're going to have something really interesting to say. And I mean, I have people, particularly on certain films, that I know a certain person is like. I have friends who are super into space movies, so I would go to a movie about space. I would go see First Man or something. I know that they're going to comment, they're going to be excited, and that's always really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And-
love that you guys look forward to comments. I actually had to
Well-
remove them from my website because I was refereeing fights too much.
Oh.
And
Wow.
yeah, I was like, I had to draw the line. I think it was on a war movie, and I had two veterans fighting in my comments,
Oh.
and it was like, no, I can't do this. Like, yeah. But
Well,
I love that you guys had respectful dialogue. That is fabulous.
Well,
I'm jealous.
I've had my share of
Oh yeah, of course.
horrible
Yeah. And I
horrible
hear
experience,
good
and
ones.
YouTube is
Yeah.
a lot worse than the blogging, in my opinion. The comments are
Yeah.
That's
the
true.
the WordPress, their spam bot is great, and it catches.
really?
So yeah, it is very good. And so a lot of those I don't even see, the the really mean ones. And but yeah, it can be a downer, and I feel sometimes frustrated because I feel like, and this maybe people will be like, wow, 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 but I feel like I kind of missed the like middle part of a channel. You know what I mean? Because like I have a small, as far as my numbers on my YouTube channel, it is small,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the best thing about being small is you don't get that kind of scrutiny, right? So
True.
you can just have fun and make friends and everything like that.
Yeah.
But then because I was on Rotten Tomatoes, it gave that kind of scrutiny without the kind of, because when you have like 1 million views, you don't really care and you're not paying attention to the
True.
comments anymore.
Right.
But like I still have that. I'm like a small channel in like a with the scrutiny of a big channel. So it's sort of a weird dynamic. I feel like.
Gotcha.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, no,
And
that's great.
you'll get to experience that when you have your first truly unpopular opinion on Rotten Tomatoes, particularly either about Star Wars or about a comic book property.
Oh,
It's
I don't
rough.
review those anymore.
That's
Yeah, no.
smart. That's smart. I usually wait now with the comic book movies because
Oh, that's wise. Yeah.
I wait a couple weeks now because part of what got me in trouble with Shazam, because I don't know if you know Allison, I famously was one of the first critics who didn't like Shazam, and it was
Yeah, I've
not
heard that
pretty.
story. Oh my god.
Oh.
No, what happened to you? I felt so
Yeah.
bad. Yeah.
It was intense.
Wow.
It was very, very intense, and I thought that I thought I had very thick skin. I really did. But it was,
It's all
I don't
fun
know.
and games until
It
the
was,
FBI gets involved, I guess.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Oh
right.
God.
Ah.
Yeah.
Whew.
Okay, I haven't experienced that yet. Thank goodness.
Yeah, I was
Oh man.
told that they were going to
That's
that I
horrifying.
was going to kill me and my family.
Oh.
If you go to another press screening, I will bring my automatic gun and shoot you multiple times.
Oh
I
my
swear
God.
I will do that. And so I had to let the screening company know.
Yeah.
And then they informed Warner Brothers.
Oh my
So then
gosh.
Warner Brothers knew. And it was nuts. I had to get chaperoned or to and from the screenings when I would go.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. But I think if I had to do it all over again, I would have not done it on YouTube, first of all,
Gotcha.
because it's way more toxic. I would have just posted it on my blog. Plus, I think I'm like a little bit better writer than I'm an orator. And I think my review was still pretty solid, but I think I'm a better writer. And plus it requires like effort to actually like respond to writing more than
True.
a YouTube
But
video.
That's
whatever
true.
though. But yeah, that's insane though.
Yeah. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But now, like when I reviewed Birds of Prey, it was actually a couple of months after it came out.
Okay.
And so I
That was
ended
smart.
up liking it. So when they are less hateful when you like it.
Yeah.
I was really nervous about the Zack Snyder Justice League, but I actually ended up liking that. So
Yes. Yeah, me too.
it wasn't too painful.
Or I've had it happen where I've liked something and people will say to me, "What are you being paid by the studio?
Yeah,
How could
that's
you
true.
like that?" And I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
yeah. So I think I've had the opposite, but I've never had death threats. So
They'll say that about Disney, and I'm like, well, what about Lion King and Maleficent 2 and Spider-Man Far From Home? And, like all those movies I gave Rotten to. If I'm getting paid by Disney, I'm doing a really bad job.
Yeah, really.
So, anyway.
There's no reasoning with those people, though.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
Yeah. They just want to fight to fight.
Yes, that's a good point.
Well, I've said for a long time, I feel like what was happening with sports for a long time is now happening with media. Where people feel like this is my team, this is my my city, my that you used to have with sports and still do, but now it's with major multinational corporations.
I know, it's so weird.
That's a great analogy. It really is.
People feel this ownership. Yeah. It's funny too because a lot of the hardcore Snyder people have now turned on Shazam, and are
Oh.
saying the same things that I said in my review. And
Mhm.
I'm like, where were you a couple of years ago? I could have used help. But one of the questions I like to ask in this series is, why do you think it's important to have female film critics, or is a reviewer review? Does not matter what the sex of the critic is, doesn't matter, or do you think it does matter, and why do you think that is the case? What do you think, Jen?
I think the more reviewers we have of all backgrounds, the better.
Mm-hmm.
Because we are, I mean, you try to be as objective as possible, but we are bringing our own background to a review. And so I'm not going to watch a movie the same way. And it's not like we're all part of the same monolith of female critics, because like with Promising Young Woman, I'm in the
Yeah.
minority of people that don't love it. And so that has been interesting, but I appreciate reading everyone's take on it. And I think discussion benefits from that. And I think you do need women. First of all, I mean, we like to say we're half the population. We're actually more than half the population. So we should get a voice. We should get equal, if not more, voices. We need people of all different races, backgrounds. When I watch something, I'm going to watch it differently too, because I'm disabled. So I'm bringing that to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just vital to bring, your entire makeup of experiences to a movie. I'm going to see things in it that men probably aren't going to see. When we get to a piece that you're proud of, I'll be going into that a little bit further later on. So, yeah, I think it's very important. How about you guys?
Yeah, what do you think, Allison?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, different upbringings obviously bring different ideas to the table. So, whether you're female, whether it's your orientation sexually, whether it's
Yeah.
your cultural background, you're going to see something different than I'm going to see probably. And so that helps lend to the discussion, obviously, which, like I said, I love the dialogue. So to me, I think it's important, not just female critics, but critics from across the board.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, I think that's very true. I mean, I was thinking about that just the other day, because somehow we started talking about the film Silence, which I really, really didn't like. I almost walked out of it, but I kept thinking like, oh, is it going to get better? Is it going to get better? And I think because I actually have worked as a missionary, and I kind of have my own views on God and religion, and I came out with a different perspective than other people.
Mhm.
I felt like, for the kind of torture that we see over and over and over again in that film, we should have felt more for the people. Like, we didn't get to know them. I didn't feel like, as a missionary, like the love of the people was such an important part of my heart and why I was doing what I was doing. And
Mhm.
I know not all missionaries were like that, but if we're going to see people get tortured, I need to know who they are and why. I need to feel more than just
Okay.
like this gratuitous
Sure.
torture.
You need that connection.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and that's what I felt like was missing. So the whole thing just left me really cold, and it was very frustrating to me. But other people that haven't had that missionary experience or aren't religious would probably come at it from a completely different perspective.
Mhm.
And I think that, like you're saying, I think that's a good thing, that we
Yeah.
all have our unique perspectives.
Yeah.
And it's great when you can find a critic that you like their perspective, even if you don't agree with them all the time. You kind of get where they're coming from,
Yeah.
and you can go back to them and see what they think about whatever's new. I like Matt Singer is one of my favorites, and I disagree with him on quite a few reviews, but I always appreciate his perspective.
Yeah, he's wonderful.
So I wanted to ask you, Jen, I love that you have your college essays on your site. I think
Oh
that's
God, those
really
old ones.
fun. Yeah.
Yes.
And I was just curious if any of those old takes you kind of cringe at now, or how do you feel?
I cringe at the writing. I mean, I did
Uh-huh.
get a scholarship for one of them, so I can't like hate it too much, but it a
Mhm.
little bit. But yeah, I had this thing where I would write mile long sentences and like, I think I read Kerouac at the wrong time. And when you're like, "Hey, a sentence that goes on for 5 pages, I like that." And so I got into it too early, and I think, you think you know everything. I started college really early. And, yeah, so I think I latched onto that. I have heard from some professors though, and it's really funny. They're like, "I had a kid try to turn in one of your old papers, and I was able to find it on your
What?
website and
Oh
trust them."
God.
And I was like,
That's
"Okay, great."
hilarious.
Yeah. So and I've been, the other thing that cracks me up is a couple of those, but mostly I've written over 2,500 pieces, so, like, I don't track down everything, but, I did have or I found out, like, third party that a few of my pieces wound up in college film textbooks or, like, little like,
Uh-huh.
portions of them. I was never paid or consulted, I think because it's online, it was just, free intellectual
Mm.
property or whatever.
Mhm.
And I mean, hey, I'm just excited about that, but I thought it was kind of funny, like,
Yeah.
coming from both ends, like the kids trying to pass it off and then like, "Oh, I guess you took this, like, 3-sentence thing I said about maybe this is a sequel to something and put it in your book." Like, that's crazy. But
That could be crazy if you
yeah.
have, like, a niece or a nephew or somebody like that is, like, going to film school. What?
I know. Oh my gosh, it was funny. I was quoted in something like, that is theological, like on, a theological something related to film, and I am not religious. Like, I grew up partly Catholic. I mean, hey, one of my best friends growing up is now a Catholic priest, but I am, for all intents and purposes, an agnostic or an atheist. And so I got a kick out of that. Like, wait a sec, I'm quoted in this book about, religion and stuff. And it's like, maybe if he would have talked to me, he might not have liked that very much. But I appreciate that, like what we're saying. Maybe he liked where I was coming from. I don't know. So it's funny.
Now, Allison, you said that you've been able to do some interviews. I interview a lot of people as well, and mostly for Hallmark and animation stuff. But how do you keep yourself objective as a critic
Oh, true.
while also talking to people, and you become kind of friendly, you become kind of invested in their story, and the how do you keep that balance?
Um, that's a really good question. I don't necessarily think that you can completely keep that balance of objectivity. Again, going back to, you have certain experiences and then certain films that you see a certain way. Um, but in terms of just talking with celebrities, it's so true. You just have to think of them as people,
Yeah.
and they want to talk about their film because usually they are very proud of their work. Not always, though.
Nope.
Um, so and in the times I've interviewed most people, it's a very quick thing. It's in the middle of a press junket, so
Right.
it's maybe 5 minutes. So you get a couple of questions in there. Hopefully, you have a good conversation with them. You talk about the movie, you talk about them, and it's done. Or if you've ever been to San Diego Comic Con and done the press rooms, it's a madhouse. So it's crazy, and you get maybe 2 to 3 questions, and then they're moving on. So you ask some basic things if you can. You certainly don't get very controversial if you
Yeah.
try not to anyway,
Mhm.
because you don't know how they'll react, and you don't know how their handler's going to react, and you don't know how your press people are going to react. And they may not invite you to the next press junket because of that, and unfortunately. So, yeah, I think I really just try and focus on why they wanted to do this movie. What is it saying? What do they want people to take away from it? And they love talking about that usually.
Yeah. What about you, Jen? With that
For
being objective
interviews, I haven't done them in a while just because they took up so much time. But I would sometimes do one or the other. I would do an interview. I mean, if I had to do both, I would, but I would try to do one or the other if possible. Because of that, I think it was kind of hard. Yeah, but I have a question for you because I love your interviews, Rachel. You're so good at it. And especially seeing these new ones that you've been doing with like composers, it's becoming like a subspecialty for you. And you have a background in music, is that right?
Well, just like more informal. Like I love to sing,
Okay.
and I was in choirs in college, and took voice lessons for many years, but nothing like professional. But I love music, and I love musical theater, and I
That's
love
what I was thinking
musicals.
about. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that has been fun. For rotoscopers, I've been able to interview 4 or 5 different composers. Recently, it's I don't know if it's just the PR people heard that or what's been going on, but yeah, those have been great. And most of the time, I'm interviewing people before I watch the film,
Okay.
and so it's kind of a little bit of an out. And luckily, with Hallmarky's podcast, most of the time I feel like we have somebody who likes the film on the panel that we
Nice.
have, and so it doesn't feel mean spirited. And we
Yeah.
try to keep it kind of light and positive while being honest. That's kind of my goal.
Mhm.
And there are times though when it's just like, oh, I don't like any of the films in this weekend. Like at Christmas, there'll be 3 or 4 movies, and I'm like, I don't like any of these.
Yes.
That's sort of hard because I don't like to be. So sometimes if that happens, we'll like talk about an old classic that I love, or I'll just try to do something to make it feel a little more positive. But yeah, it can be a challenge. Like the other day, I was interviewing a director, and she asked me point blank, "What did you think of my last film?" Which I was like, on. I didn't hate it, but it wasn't. And
Ooh.
I can't lie because the
They
listeners know
yeah.
they heard me review it. They know I didn't love it, and so I said that I felt like it was a mixed bag.
Yeah.
She was like,
All
"Okay,
right.
and, uh,
You
and
know,
that was fine."
that's the thing about reviews or movies you don't like. I always try and find at least something positive
Yeah.
to
That
say.
is
Yeah.
such good advice, Allison. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
So,
think it's so good to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and with interviews, you can always say, "I bet that was a fun project to work on."
Exactly.
ah,
Think
I'm
of it in the
stealing that,
same way.
Rachel.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was this or ask, "Was it so fun to work with so and so?
Hmm.
Was that
Yeah.
you were in Vancouver? Was that fun to be in Vancouver?"
You're like reaching for anything.
Yeah.
I love the blue top you wore. Did you get to keep it? You know,
Yeah.
no, I'm just
Yeah, if it's a
kidding.
princess movie, you can always ask about the clothes.
There you
Ah.
go. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. That was a fun, sparkly dress. There's usually something
Yeah. Just
with
get
that you
creative.
can, yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I always love to ask voice actors if I get to talk to a voice actor, just about their process, how they came up with the voice. And a lot of times the actors have, I mean, for the most part, the actors have no control over the story, so
Oh, no.
it's not really their fault.
Mm-mm.
And I do also love interviewing writers, though, and obviously that's a little more.
Yeah.
But usually I haven't seen the movie. Usually it's a pre movie interview, so that helps a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting thing doing all these interviews. I finally reached. So this is random, but we had our podcast awards in January, and they were really fun. And we had Mary Lou Henner, legend, Mary Lou Henner
Mm.
as up for one of the awards for Hallmark Princess, the supporting actress.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't know if we should put her on there because we're never gonna be able to get her. She's too big. But no, lo and behold, she's amazing, which we knew she would be. But she was so excited when she won,
Cool.
and so I started chatting with her. We became friends, and now we're like total text buddies. And I'm just like, what? My crazy life that I'm text buddies with Mary Lou Henner, and I feel like reached the point where I can't review.
Yeah.
Like I was waiting for that one where I'm like, we're too close. I'm too good a friend.
Yeah.
With
you
her.
Can't be objective.
I can't. So I can't review the next Aurora Tea Garden. I'll just have to let somebody else do it, or I'll just abstain and talk about the mechanics of it rather than giving my opinion on it. I was like, how weird is that?
It's an interesting dilemma to be in.
Yeah.
You know, an interesting situation.
Yeah.
Because, usually you don't know these people. And, some of them are so nice when you talk to them and whatever, but you don't know what they're like in real life,
Right.
Exactly.
So, or they could be really not great in an interview and maybe they're just having an off day. And so it's a little off-putting and you don't like them. But really, they're really nice in real life. It's you never know. But yeah, that's a really strange situation to find yourself in.
Well, and interviewing for me, a lot of what I learned about interviewing, I learned on my mission that I did, where we were taught to find something in the person that you're interacting with that you connect with. So if they had
such good advice,
so if they had, I love Disney and animation. So if they had something Disney in their house or whatever, oh, you like that? Let's talk about that. And then, or they had something about let's talk about Lord of the Rings. I love Lord of the Rings, or whatever it might be, or books. That's a good one. If they have books, oh, I love that book, Little Women. It's so good. And then we talk and you become friends. And, and so that's something that I try to develop when I interview somebody is, oh, you were in West Side Story when you were in high school? How fun is that? I love West Side Story. And that kind of starts to break down some of the barriers, and you can have a lot of fun with people. I think there have been ones that have been easier than others. There was one where I couldn't find anything. Like, it was just very yes and no answers to everything. And like, what can I do to make this interview go? Because it was like, if this thing's going to be 10 minutes, because he is just not talking about anything. And he was really embarrassed about the fact, because some people love the fact that they do the small roles and they're really proud of that and they hustle. And he was kind of embarrassed about it. Like, oh, I was only in a couple scenes. And I'm like, that's cool. Like, let's talk about it. And anyway, and so I finally was like, well, have you seen, this was last year, have you seen any of the Oscar nominees? And that was finally the thing. And particularly Joker. On Hallmarkies podcast, we talked about Joker for like 25 minutes.
Wow.
And I'm like, I know people are going to be, this is so off topic, but I was just happy that he was talking about anything. And
gosh, I'm with you.
I've had some really nasty people, and not the people you would think.
Oh, really?
Like some writer or this producer who produces animated Batman, Robin kind of things.
Oh,
he's notoriously a jerk. Somebody asked him a question in a press room, and at a round table even, and he said, "That's the question you're going to ask me? That's just stupid." And he got up and walked away from the entire table. I'm like, oh my God, people don't even know who you are. Stop being a jerk.
Was that Bruce Timm?
No, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but
that's okay.
I'll think of it.
I mean, pretty much everybody that works in Hallmark are pretty nice. Like, I don't know, it's a good group. But so I haven't really had anybody be rude. There's just been some people that are more nervous, I think, than others, and it's really hard to kind of get them get them talking. And so that's part of the fun of the exercise, though, I think, in a way.
Well,
But
it was interesting because I interviewed Kate Beckinsale for the last Underworld film, and she was, in the process of getting divorced from her husband who
Oh,
was producing
yeah.
and so you could tell she really didn't want to be there. Like she was
Yeah.
doing
I
her
don't
due
blame her.
diligence,
Yeah.
but yeah, she would have rather been anywhere else at that point in time. Again,
Yeah.
you don't know what's going on in other people's lives. So
yeah,
she may be a great interview, but and she wasn't bad. And I was a little nervous, but yeah, it was not.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, how do you feel the difference between being a critic and watching screeners versus going to the screenings to the theater? Do you feel like that's changed your writing at all? What do you think, Jen?
I am okay with it. I mean, there is no living up to what the experience of seeing a movie in the theater is, of course. Although, let's face it, like going to screenings with other critics, I mean, we've all had weird experiences. Like, I will never forget going to see Choke at like 9 in the morning. And, like coming in, and we'd been up late the night before, and then we're watching this questionable, nasty kind of movie at 9 in the morning, and like everyone is just not wanting to be there. So that wasn't really conducive to a great theatrical experience. But we've all had then those phenomenal experiences of like seeing, for me, The Secret in Their Eyes with other critics, and just midway through kind of looking at each other like, can you believe it's that good? Like just freaking out.
I agree that there are those really great experiences with your fellow critics where you just feel
Yeah,
like, wow,
saw
we just
something
had
amazing.
something really special together.
Yes. Yeah,
And
but because I watch so many art house films, and also with chronic pain, and I got kind of sick about 10 years ago. I started to develop some health issues. So I started doing most of my stuff at home anyway. So, you know, switching for quarantine wasn't a big change for me. So, I mean, of course, you miss the movie theater, you miss that experience. But overall, I've been okay with either format.
mhm.
I don't love some of the platforms, and I feel bad for filmmakers because I'm sure the last way they want us to see their film is like with our email address plastered in the middle of the screen, or, that whole thing. And sometimes some of the screeners, I'm sure you've had like buffering issues. I mean, that's never
Yeah.
fun, but it's such a privileged um, problem that you don't want to,
Mhm.
complain too much, because it's a lucky problem to have compared to people. Like, we get to see a movie early. We shouldn't, you don't want to complain too much. So, of course, it's wonderful to see these films, and I'm happy to review them, whether in the theater or at home. Of course, I would love to see them all on the big screen, but I'm fine
Mhm.
either way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a mixed experience for me because I really kind of detest the whole hustle that has to happen in order to get screeners sometimes, and
Uh-huh.
trying to contact the right person and the right PR, and it's just I just wish it was easier. And I know, again, small violins, because it
Yeah.
is a privilege, but it's a
Right.
lot of work. It's a lot more work than people realize, trying to
Yeah.
talk to the right person. Even if you're accepted on people's film lists, you may not get certain things,
I
and
know.
trying to hunt down the right person. It can be very frustrating and a lot of work. But the plus side of it, I'll be honest, is that sometimes I struggle if I've had a long day and I am just tired, and it doesn't have anything to do with the movie. Sometimes it does. Sometimes the movie is just a snooze fest and it puts me to sleep. But other times I'm just tired, and I struggle, and I play the head bobbing game, and I,
Yeah.
I it's sometimes hard for me. And I mean, I just think of, I never reviewed Doolittle because I fell asleep for like
I don't think you
at
missed
least
much, Rachel.
like 20 minutes. It was a long time. And
Yeah.
I, and I mean, I saw enough of it to know I'm not going to sit through it again.
But at least you didn't fake it or anything, and that's great.
No, I didn't. I
Yeah.
didn't review it. And then another one where I was actually sick, and now retrospect I look back and I'm like, what was I thinking going to the screening so sick? But I was just trying to get in, with the trying to be a hustler. And
Mhm.
so I went to a screening of Life Itself,
Oh,
the
no. Yeah.
the Oscar Isaac movie. And man,
That piece of film. Yeah.
I zonked out hard.
Oh, no.
Fell asleep. And my friend was like elbowing me. Like, oh, it was really embarrassing. Although the critics, like, I think I actually was snoring. I mean, I fell asleep.
Well, you were sick, though.
I
Yeah.
was so sick. So yeah, that's something that at least now with screeners I can pause, and if I'm just too tired, I can just wait.
Yeah. No, it's funny you mentioned that because when I was on my podcast, when I was interviewing Jason Bailey, who's a great critic, he was talking about his extensive notes process because I'm one of those people who takes like a book's worth of notes every time I watch something. It's obnoxious. Like I'm going to use, 1/10 of those. Come on. But he said sometimes he thinks taking the notes helps him stay focused and stay awake, especially if he's had a busy day and then comes home and has to deal with the kids and then and I thought there might be something to that. That's why it takes so many notes sometimes. No, I'm just kidding. But
Especially if I'm doing a podcast, then even for a Hallmark movie, I'll take a lot of notes
yeah.
because you got to have things to talk about in the episode, the podcast. So
Yep.
you got to take a lot of notes, and so I'm with you there. So let's start talking about our unpopular opinions and our reviews we're proud of. So, my one of my unpopular opinions actually was when I saw Rogue One, and I had been a huge fan of Force Awakens. I was totally on the gravy train at that point. I really enjoyed it, and so I was very excited for Rogue One, and I went and saw it, and I did not like it. I felt like it was just now knowing of the mess it was to make, I'm like, okay, I kind of get it now. I
Mhm.
didn't know that then. And so it was just like, why are the characters so underdeveloped? Why
Yeah.
I it was and I
I didn't
in
like
my
it either.
review,
I turned
I'm
it
like,
off. So this makes me feel better.
yeah. I'm like, I'm sorry. And then I had all these people that had it on their top tens, and I'm like, God bless them. I did not understand. And it's
Yes.
yes, it was just really flat to me. And I'm like, the most exciting part of the movie was them retrieving that data file off of that weird, like, what was that weird server? Like, that's as exciting as the movie got. But yeah, so that was one of my unpopular opinions. I also kind of famously wasn't a fan of the first Fantastic Beasts movie. And then the second one I hated because I think the Crimes of Grindelwald is one of the worst blockbusters I've ever seen. I really disliked it. And I feel like now time has kind of come on, people have come on my side with that one now, because those are not great. But those are two that I had unpopular opinions. I also didn't like Tenet. That would be another one. But Jen, what about you? What's an
Oh,
unpopular
for
opinion?
me,
Yeah.
boy, I guess we're linking up right to DC, Warner Brothers, and Christopher Nolan. Well, here's the thing, though. I really did like The Dark Knight. I mean, it's a great film. I thought my review was good of the film because I enjoyed it. There were wonderful things. But that's the one where I heard from people out of they came out of the woodwork like, you didn't love this aspect of it. We're just going to nail you for that. And it's like, look at the rest of it, though. I loved this. I loved that. And,
Yeah.
you do that little dance but then it's like, why am I trying to, hem and haw with these people? But I think, though, if we want to talk about unpopular opinions, boy, that is pretty hard. Oh, On the Basis of Sex, I think,
Mm.
was the one that I really wanted to love because I love RBG, I love the documentary. And when I rewatched it again, because I reviewed the Focus Features thing,
Mm-hmm.
the box set last fall, I was like, they're giving the men more agency. They're constantly telling her what she should be doing, giving her advice on everything. And yeah, it's not my favorite. Wonderful performances. I like what they were going for, but unfortunately, it was in the minority on that.
I never saw that.
Okay.
I never saw that. But you talk about a lot of classics on your podcast, at least. Do you ever have the classic that you're just like, oh, I did not care for that, even
Um,
despite it being a classic? Because we have it
that's
all
a
the
good
time on the
question.
Criterion Project.
Yeah, it has happened. I have to say, sometimes, of course, like off the top of my head, I can't think of one. I've never been, yeah, I'm trying to think like off the top of my head who, but yeah,
Yeah, we all have those.
yeah.
We're all allowed. You don't have to like, just because something is, again, a classic,
No,
doesn't mean you have to like it.
not at all. No.
Hmm.
How about
I'm not
you?
a big fan of The Graduate. I didn't love it.
Okay.
That wasn't my favorite. I respect the filmmaking, but I just
Yeah.
thought
Okay.
it was one of those movies to me where I was like, the filmmakers don't understand that Mrs. Robinson is the most interesting character in the story.
She really is,
Like
isn't she? Yep.
we're yeah,
Yeah.
they especially the girl, I forget her name. We're not interested in her at all.
Elaine, not at all.
Not
No.
at all.
And
And
Benjamin is such a creep. You're like,
yeah.
yeah.
So that was one of them that I was just like, yeah, I don't love it. But what about you, Allison? What's an unpopular opinion that you had?
I I had one that I was going with, and actually, I now have two now that you reminded me of
Oh.
something else. And it's not so much that I've necessarily written reviews that people have bashed, but whenever I say I didn't like these films, people look at me like I'm nuts. Um, the first, and they're classics. The first is Scarface. I did not like it at all. I did not find his character to be redeeming at all, and I just didn't like it. And you had him, an Italian, playing a Cuban, which would never stand today. But I just didn't. I guess I have to have a connection maybe sometimes to the characters, and yeah,
Sure.
he just was so off-putting to me from the very beginning that I didn't
Yeah.
like it. Um,
I
Mhm.
don't really like mafia movies very much. I mean, I there's some I respect,
mhm.
obviously, like The Godfather and stuff like that, but I would never choose of my own volition to watch a
Okay.
mob movie. It's just not
Oh,
my
I
favorite.
love mom movies.
I generally don't mind. I don't mind it, but that
Yeah.
again, I like lots of different types of genres, so
Mhm.
that's not a
Yeah,
bad
that's
thing
true.
for me. But yeah, that I just didn't like it, and people think I'm nuts. So, and
Oh, I
this.
don't think you're nuts. No. No.
The second one, a big classic that people absolutely love, Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Oh,
I am
yeah,
with you there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So here's
Yeah.
the thing.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I have to say that my knowledge of Audrey Hepburn was always My Fair Lady because I'd seen it so many
uh-huh,
times. And then
yeah,
I had to do a review. Paramount Presents is doing these, they're reworking their classic movies. And so I got to see Roman Holiday. And I loved it. And I loved her in it.
Oh,
And it was so
love it.
great. And then I saw
Mhm.
Breakfast at Tiffany's. And I'm like, she's manipulative. She's a high priced prostitute. I, I just don't, again, I didn't find
mhm,
anything redeeming about her character. Um, Again, they had a, even though back in the day that's the way it was, they had people playing different ethnicities. It didn't
Yeah.
really work all that well. Yeah, I didn't
Mm-mm.
especially see the point of the movie,
Yeah.
and people think I'm crazy, but
No, I mean,
No.
I love it. It was a movie that I kind of championed when I was in college, and I know the flaws are pretty obvious, but I think that the fact that they are such flawed characters who find themselves through their love for each other is what kind of rang true for me. But yeah, I get it with that movie. It's definitely not going to be for everyone, so I can understand that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't necessarily get their
Mhm.
chemistry together, so I didn't, I'm a hopeless romantic, and I love stories. So,
Yeah.
I should probably be watching the Hallmark Channel like every day.
Yes, you should.
Um,
Well, I mean, in the book,
with what
yeah.
time, you know? But yeah,
Yeah,
again,
we all have them.
I
We
don't know.
all have the classics that it's just like,
Yeah,
no. I watched Spartacus
yeah.
last year and I did not love that. No.
Mm.
I love Lawrence of Arabia.
What didn't you like about
Um,
it?
I don't know. I just with this
You're like,
feeling like it
nope.
was really boring, and I'd have to read over my
Okay,
review again, but because I do a blind spot series every
all right.
month where I review on my blog a movie that's either a
Okay.
cult classic or a critical favorite or just
Mm.
something I haven't seen that I've been meaning to see. And so I had Spartacus, and I was just like, I don't know, I just did not like. I just didn't think it was very good. But yeah. So
Okay.
let's talk about some reviews that we're proud of that we really love. And mine's not a review this time. I recently started a new series that I hope to be able to do more of. I had previously done every year, I had looked at the animated Oscar nominees and decided did the right one win.
Mm.
And I had already done that from
Oh,
2001 all the way up to the current year. And
wow.
I decided for a new series to start with the year 2000 and go over all the animated films and then pick which ones I thought would be nominated by the Academy and then which one I think would have won if they'd had an animated Oscars that year. So it was a ton of work. I worked really
Wow.
hard
Mm.
to watch. I even watched like obscure films like this weird pudding movie from Australia that I watched, the magic
Oh,
pudding,
wow.
and
Wow.
and it was really fun and it was a lot of work, and I was just very proud of how it came out. I
Mm.
thought I did a good job editing it. I thought I did a good job, and it seemed like it got a pretty good response. There were a lot of comments, and so I'm definitely going to keep doing it. Going on, I mean, you can go back for lots of years, and but it takes a while because it's a good month at least to watch like 15 movies. It's going to take a while. So that was really fun. I watched the Pokemon movie, the original Pokemon movie again. I watched
Mm.
just a whole bunch of different films, and I just was very proud of how that video turned out. And so that's one that I thought of this time. But what about you, Jen?
Okay, well, this is interesting, and no, I didn't actually like plan this, so it is kind of funny. But I'm one of those people who's super hard on myself, so I went through several different. Oh, I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about this, and it was like 2 hours ago. I'm like, nope, Scarface. That's what I'm going with. No, I just think that is so funny. Like,
That is
I
really funny.
swear, Allison and I. This isn't a bit. We didn't like
No.
but I don't like love the movie. I mean, The Godfather is my favorite series of all time. I love Goodfellas. I
Mm.
do love like I mean organized crime movies are great. I'm fascinated by it. Italian American going back. I mean, there's it's interesting to me. But this one, it is excessive. It's larger than life. I see why other people don't like it. I didn't love it the first time I saw it. But I reviewed Scarface, and I'm talking about the 1983 version, not the 1932 by Howard Hawks, which everyone knows is a classic. I'm going with the gaudy De Palma one. And anyway, I reviewed it on 4K, and this was in 2019, and it became one of my most read pieces and kind of illustrated. Like, I got such really good feedback. Somebody saying, like, that's why we need women to write about these because we're going to see things that maybe men aren't going to see. I kind of zeroed in. I mean, I went into the history. It's an essay, basically, of the original film by Howard Hawks with Paul Muni, and then
Mm.
what they tried to do with this version of the film, and the controversy surrounding it, but also as a woman, I was fascinated by the female characters or the way they're slighted. Michelle Pfeiffer and Mary
Mm.
Elizabeth Mastrantonio,
Yeah.
and also Al Pacino's character, who I kind of get a kick out of his sort of, usually in these movies like White Heat, Cagney, you have some sort of like top of the world vibe, like it's a Madonna whore or like mother issues. But in this one, we have the sister issue going on. So I sort of zeroed in on that. Yeah, it's kind of creepy. And so I zeroed in
Yes.
on that. And then also, we never see him hook up with his wife. And so I became like fascinated while I was revisiting this. Like, why
Oh.
doesn't he have a sex life in this movie? The movie is so excessive about everything else. Like there might be some stuff going on there. So I kind of went into this and I thought, oh my God, I'm gonna get so much email. People are gonna be angry. Like, what is he implying? And I think, whether I'm onto something, whether or not, stuff, fascinated me about it and made people at least look at it a little bit differently. And that's all I could hope for. So I'm going with that one, I guess. But no, I don't love this movie. It's not like one of my favorites, but it was one that really caught my eye and made me dig in a little deeper and try something different.
I think that's great. Well, Allison, what about you? What's
Interesting.
one that you're proud of?
So I don't know if there's one that I am like, oh, the whole review is just so awesome. I have moments where I write a sentence and I'm like, damn, that's
Mhm.
good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, like I always say, I have moments of brilliance followed by years of
We all
mediocrity.
do. Yeah.
So, oh yeah, well, so I wrote a sentence in my review for Words on Bathroom Walls, and I
Mhm.
love it. So I'm so proud of it that
Okay.
I'm going to
All
read it
right.
to you now. Um, Freudenthal takes a hard to understand mental illness and offers us a visual representation of it in an attempt to demystify the mystery of
Ooh, that's
schizophrenia.
nice.
I
Yeah.
I
Right? I
I
was
Very
like,
love that because that movie was actually really, I mentioned it in the last episode, so I didn't say it this time, but that was a very special
mm,
movie for me last year because in my review, I asked if anybody with schizophrenia could reach out and, give me some insight of whether the movie they
mm,
liked the way, was portrayed. And somebody actually did. And so I ended up interviewing
mm.
him and interviewing Tor Frudenthal actually on my podcast. And it was such a
Oh,
positive experience. And so I'm glad to see that you kind of got that a little bit from that as well, because I just think it was a little bit of a hidden movie that didn't get that kind of got lost last year.
I definitely agree with you
Mhm.
that it got lost. And I think, people talk about schizophrenia, but nobody
Mhm.
truly understands it. And you can understand it unless you're dealing with it. Um, but this, I really felt like he gave us a visual
Yeah.
representation. And I was like, okay, I get it a little
Mhm.
bit more, and I unfortunately have someone in
Oh.
my family
Mhm.
who suffers from schizophrenia.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Schizophrenia. And so I said to his father, you all need to watch this movie. You all need to understand what he is dealing with. And I just thought it was just so well done. So well done. And so yeah, that I'm very proud of that sentence.
Yeah, Charlie Plummer too. I think he is going to win an Oscar one of these days. He is such a good actor. If you didn't see Spontaneous last year, that was great.
Okay.
Underrated film, bizarre. It's
Yeah,
very
it's on my
strange, but
list. I need to see that.
yeah, it's really good, really good. And he's just, I mean, Lean on Pete was one of my favorites that year when it
Oh,
came out,
yes.
and he's just a really great young actor. I think he I say he's the next DiCaprio, but I think he might even be better. I mean, he's a very good actor. And him and what's his name? From Manchester by the Sea, Lucas Hedges, I think are the two
Yeah.
younger actors that I think are just so good. Anyway, great. That's a great pick. And so thank you so much to both of you for coming on. I had a great time talking with both of you,
Thank
and this was a
you.
lot of fun. Yeah. So, Jen, how can people find you and your content?
I am easily findable, and you can yell at me about any of my opinions right on Twitter at Film Intuition, which is also the name of my website, filmintuition.com. My podcast is Watch with Jen. You can find it on all the different podcasting platforms. But yes, this was so good. I really enjoyed speaking with you both. Thank you for having me.
And Allison, what about you?
So on social media, I am Movie Girl Ali, ALI. And obviously, Flick Direct, Rotten Tomatoes, you can find my reviews. We have YouTube channels as well. The first one being Flick Direct, and that's where you'll see a lot of interviews that I've done. We also have one, movie trailers by Flick Direct. So it's just a bunch of all the movie trailers coming out. So feel free to comment on the movie trailers, because I love what people say about them and what my opinions of them are as well. Where else can you get in touch with me? There's so many places. I'm also now doing a weekly 10-minute segment on KRMS. I had to think about that for a second. It's a morning radio show, and we just talk about what's happening at the box office, what's coming up. And so you can tune in. It's through Lake of the Ozarks, but you can find us on the web. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, we'll have links for all of that in the description, so y'all should follow and check that out. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. And if you're listening on iTunes, please leave us your ratings and reviews. We really appreciate that. And if you are listening on YouTube, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. We also have our Patron group, where in April we had a Q&A with the before mentioned Mary Lou Henner as part of our patrons, because she's just the best. And so it's only $2 a month to join. Please join. We would really appreciate it. And then also we have our merch store, which includes our female film critic panel logo merch that you can get whatever you want on it. It's really fun. And so check that out. And thanks so much to both of you. Really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you all later.
Bye,
Bye everyone.
Bye.